Hey, yo, welcome in, everybody. I didn't do the yo-yo this time. I went a little Rick Ramon.
It was a half yo-yo.
It was a halfway in between there, but happy to have you all here. The Lakers get the win last night over the Suns. Controversial game. We'll talk a bit about that. In fact, people in the chat asking why are we a little late? Because we were talking about the game last night off air, just going over it all. But the Lakers win 116-114. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about the controversy in the game. How did the Lakers shift their strategy? JJ Redick unleashing Jared Vanderbilt. We'll get into, of course, all of that. Dylan the Villain Brooks taking on LeBron James. That situation, what this all means for the team moving forward, and a whole lot more. Happy to have y'all here on the YouTube channel. If you have not done so yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications as well. I'm Trevor Lane, Jason Timpf, Jovan Buha, the three amigos together as always. How are you guys doing?
What's up, guys? It's good to see you. Christmas is right around the corner. Can you believe it? This year's flying by.
Flying by. Doing well, though. Lakers are... it's been an interesting last couple of weeks with the Lakers, but they got the win.
Can we get a stress-free... Like, all I want for Christmas is a stress-free Lakers win. Is that possible? Can they do that?
I'm sure in Utah it's just going to be easy and breezy, right, guys? There's no chance that turns into a tough, like, nail-biter type of game, right?
God. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to turn into... All right, let's get into this game. So the Lakers, they were up... What was the biggest... I think in the fourth, they were up 20?
20.
79.
They were up 20 with 7.5 minutes left in this game.
And they win by 2 and had to retake the lead. They lost the lead on a Dylan Brooks 3 late in the game. Jovan, let's start with you. What happened? What was this game?
This was a wild game because, so they're tied in the first half, 62-62, and they're doing so despite they had 13 turnovers, just could not take care of the ball in the first half. I believe they were 3 for 14 on threes, and they had also missed like 6 or 7 free throws in the first half. So you just look at that alone, and with the defensive performance that they had for stretches there, I thought they should have been up 10 to 15 points if they just did the little things in terms of ball control and making your free throws, etc. But then that third quarter, they get off to a little bit of a rocky start there, and they get down, I believe it's 77-71. And from that point on, with a Banshee-led group of Jackson Hayes, Jake LaRavia, Gabe Vincent, LeBron, and Luka, and there's a couple of variations. I think Rui might have been in there at one point. But that core of the group, from the midway point of the third quarter into the beginning of the fourth quarter, they go on a 24-0 run to take ultimately a commanding, I believe it was 95-77 lead, and then eventually 99-79. Then from that point on, they get outscored 35-14 over the final 7.5 minutes of this game. They're down by a point with 12 seconds left, and then Dylan Brooks does his thing. Like, he gets ejected, ultimately doesn't cost the Suns the game because the Lakers missed the technical free throw, and then they had already called timeout, and we're going to get the ball on the sideline at half court. So ultimately, like, he gets ejected. It probably hurts their defense, does swing the momentum a little bit, but the Lakers didn't capitalize on that. And then they are about to, I think, throw up kind of a Hail Mary shot at the end there and probably lose the game, draws the foul, makes 2 of the 3 free throws, and the Lakers won the game. But it was just like about to be one of their better wins of the season, in my opinion. Like, that 24-0 stretch was probably their best defensive stretch of the season, with the Banshees just wreaking havoc, causing turnovers, getting out in transition. Jared Vanderbilt obviously played a huge role in both the second and fourth quarters. The offensive rebounding, like, there was a lot to love from this game. And then, as we've seen with this team in fourth quarters, when they have a lead, they just cannot protect a lead. And they start playing prevent basketball, rolling the ball up the floor, draining the clock out, settling for contested threes. And then that's how you blow. They were also up 14 with 3 minutes left. That was kind of the crazy thing, was like Phoenix went on a little run. LA responded a little bit, got it back up to 14. And then over the final 3 minutes, it was just a disaster class until they ultimately prevailed.
Frustrating, certainly, as a watch. It was not a satisfying win in that regard. At least it's a win. And I will take an ugly, frustrating win over a pretty loss any day. But that took years off of our lives, I think, watching that game, because it was very stressful watching the Lakers give away that lead. I had why did LeBron shoot the technical free throw? Why other guys on the floor have better free throw percentages? I don't know why LeBron took that one, but Jason, this speaks to one of my biggest pet peeves in basketball, and that's teams going to the prevent offense, slowing things down. What you invariably wind up doing is putting the other team right back in the game, because you take tough shots late in the clock, long rebounds, you put your opponent in transition, and you wind up giving them a run. Why do we see, because the Lakers aren't the only team to do this, why do we see teams continually do this? They get leads, and then they try to just coast across the finish line and go away from offensively the things that got them the lead. Why does this keep happening?
Well, I think there's a human nature element too. There's like a natural relaxation from the team that's up 20, and a natural like kind of boost in energy and physicality from the team that's desperately trying to claw their way back. And then prevent offense too is designed to like run as much clock as possible and make sure you get a shot up so you don't turn it over. Like this sort of thing happens in the NFL too, where like defensively teams will become more conservative, and on offense they start running the ball more. They have more 3 and outs. It like inevitably, how many times have we watched an NFL game where a team's up 21-10 at the half, but the next thing you know, the other team has the ball with a chance to take the lead? And it's just kind of part of sports to a certain extent. I think there's a certain amount of like when things really get crazy physical and intense at the end of games, the Lakers' athleticism deficit will start to pop a little bit more. This game was kind of fascinating because there's like 5 different storylines, which is such a random thing to see in a December 14th like random NBA League Pass game. But there's like Luka was really bad last night. That was he's been kind of bad since he got back from Slovenia. That's kind of one of the storylines you can get into. There's the Dillon Brooks LeBron beef, which was something that played out heavily in the Lakers' favor, as Dillon's dumbass tried to spear LeBron with his head in his chest on a little step back jump shot in the third quarter that picked up his 5th foul, and he was off the floor for that big Lakers run. And Dillon's one of the Suns' best player, like he's arguably their second best player in this sequence as a 3-and-D guy that can get buckets, and he took himself out of the game getting into a contest with LeBron James. And like then there's the massive bench run at the tail end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, the Lakers go on a 28-2 run like Jovan talked about, where they lean into their athletes. That's a whole storyline. Then there's like the Suns coming all the way back. That's a whole storyline. There's the late game officiating, which was a complete and total shit show, for lack of a better word, which I think like it was a nearly impossible game to officiate with how physical it was, but I also didn't think the refs did a good job at all. So like it was just a mess from like 17 different angles. It doesn't even make sense to come at this from one angle because there were so many different things that went on. But I thought, easily my biggest takeaway, if I had to like focus on one thing, was how we ended the show last time. If you guys remember on Thursday, we talked about what we wanted to see in the Suns game. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty simple about it. I was like, the one thing I want to see in this game is them show up for the fight. I want to see them show up ready to physically handle a team like Phoenix. And one of the things we talk a lot about is how the Lakers are slow, but one of the things we don't talk enough about is that the Lakers are big. They're a big team. They've got a lot of big wings and big forwards. And obviously Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, and Marcus Smart ended up getting more minutes as a result of Austin being out of the lineup. Basically, all of Austin's minutes got split between those 3 guys, which are bigger, better defenders, which is going to help things. But even the core lineups, like I thought DeAndre Ayton just mashed the Phoenix front line in this game and really physically handled them. And overall, the thing that I was most impressed about is like this was a game where nothing went right for them offensively. Luka was bad throughout. LeBron was good in the middle portions of the game, but he wasn't good in crunch time, and he was terrible in the first quarter. Marcus Smart was damn near shaving points down the stretch of this game. Like it was a disaster on offense in almost every facet, yet the Lakers won a game because they dominated the margins. They won a game because they got 24 offensive rebounds and 25 second chance points. They had 8 block shots. They had 13 steals. They physically punked Phoenix in a game 2 weeks after Phoenix physically punked them. And that to me was just like a sign of like, oh, there is more fight in these guys than they've shown us in a lot of these games.
I was not expecting, I thought the Lakers could win this game. And when I went back and looked at the film, I saw a lot of extra effort on the defensive side of the ball, especially during that stretch where the Suns didn't score for about 8 minutes, I think, of actual game time that they did not score. I mean, their score didn't move. But I was surprised with the way the Lakers did it in terms of not only leaning into the defense, but being a dominant offensive rebounding team. Jovan, I don't buy that that's totally sustainable to just become a really good offensive rebounding team, but it was still good to see them, as Jason said, physically respond to what the Suns have provided in what we saw against them the last time. It was good to see the Lakers do what they did here. Is this the path forward, though, for the team to run this defensive banshee unit, and then can the offensive rebound become a bigger weapon for them as a result?
To your point about the offensive rebounding, the Lakers had 24 offensive rebounds, which was their most in a game since the 2014-15 season in over 10 years. So to that point, I do not think that is sustainable. I do not think think about the 2020 title team and how big that team was with JaVale and AD and LeBron and Dwight and all of their big perimeter players. That group never had 24 offensive rebounds in a game. So this was a bit of an exception, but I do want to give JJ and the coaching staff a lot of credit here because they've not been a good offensive rebounding team for the most part, right? Like earlier in the season, it was a bit of a talking point. They did have a couple of performances where they had double-digit offensive rebounding games, and JJ was talking about that being more of an emphasis. But I thought, like, this is what a good coach does. He changes the game plan to exploit the weakness of the opponent, and the Lakers, looking across from them in some of these matchups where Grayson Allen or Dylan Brooks or Royce O'Neal is the 4 out there, yeah, you should put Jared Vanderbilt out there in the dunker spot, grabbing offensive rebounds. You should be playing more of the Banshees and with more energy and just saying, Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Ayton, Jackson Hayes, Vando, go get offensive rebounds. Rui had a couple of offensive rebounds. Like, it was a total group effort here. In terms of the Banshees, though, again, to go back to that 24-0 run or 28-4, whichever segment you want to pick, like the key there was 3 Banshees plus 2 of the stars. And I think we finally saw like what that could look like if the Lakers make a longer term roster upgrade of, again, Jackson, Jake, and Gabe. And those guys had relatively quiet first halves. I thought the only bench player that had an impact in the first half was Vando, maybe like a little bit Jackson. But Gabe and Jake were kind of just out there in the first half as they've been recently, right? And not really making much of a difference on either side. And then those guys, like Jake especially, I thought the offense rebounding, the steals, Jake was like a man possessed out there in that third quarter, pressuring and like, doing Jose Alvarado type activities in terms of like coming from behind guys and stripping the ball. Like he was everywhere, right? And then Gabe also had a couple of deflections and steals, and Jackson was dunking on everybody and had a few offensive rebounds as well. So I think that, to me, I don't think they're going to replicate the 24 offensive rebounds, but it did show that when this group plays with a sustained level of effort and urgency, we've talked about this. Like, you'll see it for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, but that was a 8-9 minute stretch, and they had multiple of those stretches throughout the course of the game. Like, that is what they need to do moving forward. So I think, game ball to Vando. Vando had, in my opinion, his best and most impactful performance of the season. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Austin returns, because that's 37 minutes being added back into the rotation. That is a big piece. But I think they're probably going to have to expand the rotation to 9 or 10 players. Vando's going to have to stay in it. And it's probably going to be more of a matchup-based rotation, in my opinion, or should be a matchup-based rotation based on the night. But I do think this was like a Sun-specific thing where if they were playing Houston last night, I don't think they're having 24 offensive rebounds. And like, it's a bit of a different dynamic there with their size and their defensive rebounding. So I do think they looked at, okay, the Suns are small, 1 through 4. We can exploit this. And they did a brilliant job doing so.
And that's certainly credit to JJ Redick, because that's not how they've won games over the course of the season. This has not been the standard script for the Lakers, except, aside from maybe losing a big lead, but that's not been the standard script for the Lakers over the course of the season. I see some people in the chat that have said, well, but if you miss a lot of shots, you get a lot of offensive rebounds. They had a 49% offensive rebound rate last night, which is, the Rockets are floating right around 41% on the season as the best offensive rebounding team in the NBA. And they're the best by a long shot. And that's like historic numbers there for Houston on the offensive glass. So this was not just the Lakers did miss a lot of shots, but this is not just they missed a lot of shots, so therefore their offensive rebound volume was high. Their percentage of offensive rebounds grabbed relative to shots missed was through the roof. So they really did work on that side of the floor. Now, Jason, the resurgence of Vando, the Banshees being unleashed, would have to imagine that this means Jared Vanderbilt is back in the rotation. I mean, Jovan just talked about 37 minutes for Austin Reeves coming back in. I would have to assume Jared Vanderbilt has now, after what he did last night, he's got to be back in this room, whatever it means minutes wise. I don't see any way they turn around and go back away from him, right?
Yeah, it's tricky because you wonder where those minutes are going to come from. I think, Jake was really active and really successful as an athlete last night, but he's had games where he hasn't been. And so has Vando. Vando's had stretches where he's played this year where he hasn't looked effective. I think that one of the things to keep in mind, I love the way that Jovan kind of laid it out as like matchup specific. I don't really see a guy in the rotation beyond like Jackson and Marcus off the bench that have like earned surefire shifts every single night, where it's like these dudes are so good you just have to play them. Like, to me, that Gabe, Jake, Vando kind of group needs to be very much a night to night. Let's see who has it, because if Gabe's not hitting shots and if Gabe's not being impactful, I think it needs to be Vando who's getting those opportunities as essentially the primary point of attack guy who's playing off the ball. Because, I mean, Gabe's been going through a stretch where he hasn't shot the ball particularly well. And I think ultimately it's like kind of matchup to matchup. I think Vando, it was huge on defense in that game, particularly playing passing lanes. He got 2 steals off the right wing on sequences where he just was in the passing lane with his arm out, and Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen both threw the ball directly into his hands just because he was in the right position. He had that big block on Jordan Goodwin too, which was like a low man rotation. And you're like, oh my God, like a lot of it is proof of concept to me, where it's like, kind of like in the Spurs game where you go, oh, if we had a role player who could play a little bit of defense and could like knock down a wide open catch and shoot 3 at a pretty high clip, this is what it would look like. Because Marcus Smart hits 8 threes in that game, and we know he's not going to do that again. But like, that's what it looks like when you see a good shooter who can play a little bit of defense next to these guys. Similarly, I thought LaRavia and Vando kind of were a representation of what this would look like if you had just a 6'8" rangy athlete on this team that was getting 30 to 35 minutes a night. Because right now there's not really a player that justifies that type of workload. But eventually, if the Lakers were able to bring that sort of guy in, you'd have that consistently night to night. Right now, JJ kind of has to play that, man, is Vando being impactful tonight? Is Jake being impactful tonight? Does it make sense to go this direction? It is tricky, as he's basically just trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat with getting defensive personnel to work with this group. And so I think it was just proof of concept, kind of seeing those things work. And one thing I wanted to mention too, like this is a long basketball belief that I've held, which is when you are the more physically aggressive team, you tend to get a better whistle. And I thought it was really unique, in a really unique kind of like perfect dichotomy between the Spurs game and this game. You go into the Spurs game, the Lakers are slow to the ball all night. They're struggling to contain the ball. They're constantly out of position. They're hacking. They send the Spurs to the line a million times. The Spurs have a plus 12 free throws made advantage. You come into this game, and I know people are like concerned about the grifting. Devin Booker attempted 16 free throws. He actually attempted more free throws than Luka did. Luka and Dylan did their grifting. Those two guys attempted 30 free throws between the two of them. But the Lakers had a plus 12 free throws made advantage, in large part because they were the more physically aggressive team all night that had the Suns out of position. They were beating them to loose balls. They were the team that was benefiting from their physical aggression. Again, there's always going to be a certain amount of like good call here, bad call there that happens in NBA games, but in a large sample, generally speaking, the team that brings better physical aggression is going to get a better whistle. And I think you saw both sides of that coin in the last week with Lakers wins and losses.
Yeah, that's a great response to that question, because I've seen people in the chat. I've seen Suns non-Lakers fans, essentially Suns fans especially, but any non-Lakers fans screaming from the mountaintops that this game is evidence the NBA is rigged, that it's all in favor of the Lakers because the Lakers shot more free throws than the Suns. I always have the qualifier. You have to have actually watched the game first and foremost to complain about. You can't just look at the box score and go, oh my God, the Lakers shot more free throws. We should all go lose our minds. But Jovan, how do you respond to the criticisms of the Lakers getting more free throw attempts than the Suns in this one, and the claims from non-Lakers fans that this is evidence that there is some sort of fix in to help the Lakers?
I mean, I'm pretty tired of this storyline, right? Like at this point, it's a bit played out. I think we've each discussed it on our own channels at various points over. I mean, this has been a multi-year thing in terms of the free throw disparity between the Lakers and their opponents. And it's just been a thing that the Lakers are one of the more aggressive teams in terms of getting downhill. Luka and Austin are two of the better players in the league in drawing fouls. And the Lakers have also historically, at least over the last few years, not been a high foul team. Now, part of that's also been like some bad defense and them not defending, and that has led to lower fouls over that stretch as well. But yeah, I mean, this is just, I don't really have much to add other than like we've talked about this before. This is anytime the Lakers have a decisive free throw advantage, this narrative comes up from the opposing fan base. I get it to a degree, right? Anytime a team is shooting 30 plus free throws, like that opposing fan base is probably going to be upset with it, regardless of whether you feel it's fair or not. But I think basically, most, if not all, of the calls they got were fair. And there was also some things that went against them late in the game that, that Luka 3 where Dylan Brooks literally tackled him after, and, some other things late. So, I mean, you can play that game. You can find different clips to highlight that went against a certain team. But I think this is just one of the strengths of this Lakers team. And if you're an opposing defense, like, you have to adjust. And we've also seen some teams win the Spurs won the free throw battle. And I thought that was a big reason why the Spurs beat the Lakers, a few days ago. So
and they're not
impossible to beat in the free throw game.
Like it was in the moment. It was lame. Like the Spurs earned more free throws than we did.
They did. They were because they were burning Lakers defenders all night long on the perimeter and getting into the paint. And that helps create free throw attempts.
The officials do not gift free throws to both teams based on a predetermined allotment. It is earned through basketball. It has always been that way. Jovan laid it out perfectly. The Lakers were literally a bad defense for years that never fouled. JJ's begging them to foul more. He's literally talked about it. So it's just a product of the Lakers having two of the best foul grifters in the entire NBA, and Austin and Luka on one side, and then them playing terrible defense on the other end. It's literally not any more complicated than that.
Yep. Yeah, that's really what it is. But like you said, Jovan, anytime there's a free throw discrepancy in the Lakers' favor, the opposing fan base is going to run around screaming and crying about it. But the Lakers were at the other end of that. There were some calls that went against the Lakers. They were at the other end of it against the Spurs. This happens sometimes. The Lakers were the bigger, strong. Part of it is a decision that the Suns made to play smaller. They tried to play quicker players and exploit the Lakers the way the Spurs did by forcing Rui to defend a smaller player, by forcing either LeBron or Luka to defend a smaller player that was going to be quicker when we started Gillespie and Grayson Allen. And there were some possessions where it worked, but in general, the Lakers were able to use the extra size and physicality to dominate the offensive glass, and that was the response by LA. All right, let's talk a little bit about Dylan the Villain versus LeBron. Dylan Brooks, LeBron James getting into it almost from the opening, like almost immediately there was stuff going on. That first Dylan Brooks technical foul was picked up very early. We saw all the stuff late in the game, Brooks running over and getting that last technical, which by the way is a really stupid thing to do in that moment. Suns fans were cheering him on, and he almost cost them the game had LeBron potentially hit that free throw. But Jovan, what did you think about the Dylan Brooks versus LeBron situation, the back and forth there, the chippiness, and where that ultimately led? Did you like the way LeBron responded to it? How did you feel about how that whole series played out?
I think it lit a fire under LeBron, right? And you saw LeBron respond, like rough first quarter, five of his 8 turnovers were in the first quarter, but I thought from that point on, he was much better. I apologize. The Gardener's going right now, so if you guys hear that in the background. But I thought like that was as mad as I can remember LeBron ever being, right? Like, there'll be times maybe he doesn't get a call, like the Boston game, right? And going back a few years where Jason Tatum fouls him at the end, they don't get it, goes to overtime. But like LeBron actually being mad at a player and going after him a couple times, like that was, at least to my recollection, I can't really remember ever seeing LeBron like that mad. So, I mean, Dylan Brooks was agitating him, but he poked the bear. And we saw what happened in 2023 when he poked the bear. It happened again last night. And I mean, Dillon just can't help himself, and that's kind of the funny thing here, right? He also had the play where, I mean, picking up his 5th foul, like that was just a play he should not have committed that foul, and like the self-inflicted wounds. Like he was a big part of Phoenix going on that run in the 4th quarter, hit a couple threes, made some big plays, obviously hit potentially at the time, potentially the go-ahead and game-winning 3-pointer. But then he just can't help himself. And LeBron, makes a little bit of contact there. You could argue if that was a foul or not. But Dillon took the bait, and then he charged him, and then he got ejected. And again, I think it's being a little bit overblown in terms of I don't think that actually cost the Suns the game, because the Lakers missed the free throw, and they were going to get the ball sideline out of bounds anyway. But it did, I think, swing some momentum in the Lakers' favor. But it's pure entertainment when these two guys match up, and most of the time it's been a one-sided beef, right? Like it's Dillon Brooks trying to agitate LeBron, trying to go at him, trying to get him upset. He finally got him upset, but he lost the game. So ultimately LeBron gets another win against Dillon Brooks.
Jason, where are you at on LeBron versus Dillon Brooks in this situation? And we've had a lot of trade conversations on my show. Dillon Brooks I don't know if the Suns are going to trade him because they've won a lot of games. I don't know if they're going to be in sell mode. Could Dillon Brooks and LeBron ever coexist on the same team?
Well, LeBron and Lance Stevenson once coexisted on the same team. So there's that. I mean, it's kind of funny because I actually do think Dillon severely hurt his team last night. And it wasn't with that final play. The final play to me was just more...
To be clear, I think he cost them. I just don't think... I think in that moment, people are acting like that blew the game for them. And I think it was more of the stuff earlier, but not that specific play.
No, I totally agree. I agree with you. That I'm saying that play to me was more just like the perfect encapsulation of how dumb this Dillon Brooks LeBron feud is. Because if he was interested in winning the basketball game after hitting the go-ahead 3, he would have got back and played defense. And like LeBron fouled him, for the record. I thought he fouled him, but like LeBron fouled him in a completely clean way. He was doing a run-by closeout and he bumped him with his shoulder. Like it was a foul, should have been a fourth point or an extra free throw at the end, but it wasn't a dirty play or anything. LeBron was closing out on literally a shot that was a lead-changing shot with 12 seconds left in the game or whatever it was. So he was just throwing a hard closeout and he bumped into Dillon Brooks. It was a foul, probably should have been called, just like the one where Dillon Brooks tackled Luka on the left wing, should have been called. Like I mentioned earlier, it was a bloodbath of a game. It's super difficult to officiate when it gets like that, whatever it happens. LeBron didn't say anything to him. LeBron just ran down the floor, and LeBron was standing there, and Dillon Brooks runs over and rams him with his chest when he already has a technical foul. It was just a classic example. Like for Dillon, this is more than basketball. It's very much like a weirdo kind of like aura farming thing that he's doing at LeBron's expense. And it's not the first time we've seen a guy do this with LeBron. We saw Lance Stevenson do it. We saw Deshaun Stevenson do it back in the Washington Wizards days. And what's kind of sad about it is, once again, like it extended deeper into the game. It's like, we get it, dude. You're big and strong, and you can bump shoulders with LeBron and not get knocked on your ass like most players can. Like we get it. Like you've turned yourself into a hell of a player, but like you getting into that extracurricular junk with LeBron throughout the whole game gave you 5 fouls less than halfway through the third quarter. And the Lakers go on a 28-2 run when you're off the floor. You're off the floor, and you're arguably the Suns' second best player. You did that to your team because you had an ISO against LeBron and you wanted to get a moment at his expense, and you jabbed your skull into his sternum and knocked him over. Like you're letting the extracurricular stuff get in the way of you being the basketball player that you're capable of being. And the last thing I'll say about it is this: like, it's kind of sad because like he's good enough now that he doesn't need LeBron to lift his persona or his place in this league. He's now a $20+ million player. I bet you he gets more than that when he resigns. He's very, very good. The dude, like, part of the way the Suns got back into that game is Dillon Brooks, just like every other Sun, refused to miss a 3 over the final 5 minutes of the game, And like ultimately with Dillon, I just look at him as a really talented player that's continued to let the extra stuff get in the way throughout his career, whether it was him actively trying to hurt people on the court early in his career, or this weird stuff with LeBron now. And guess what? LeBron's now 17-8 in his career straight up against Dillon Brooks, including that win in the postseason against Memphis, where in the pivotal moment of the series in Game 4 late, LeBron was able to beat him off the dribble and basically win that game and swing that series towards the Lakers. So like all you've done is all this extracurricular junk to lose a battle, and in this case, lose yourself another game. When we've seen the other side of the coin, like, dude, 2 weeks ago, you did way less extracurricular junk. Like, you talked your junk and you played physical, but you weren't anywhere near as much of an out of control banshee on defense in that game. And you cooked the Lakers with your shot making and got a huge win on the road, stayed available to your team throughout the game, were able to play big minutes. Like, I want to see Dillon's career tilt more in that direction. And last thing I'll say, Trevor, to your point, I don't think the Suns should trade him because I think he's like a foundational piece for them at this point. But I personally want him on my basketball team. I just want him to get over this LeBron stuff. It's like it's old and it's kind of like cringy to watch, to be honest with you.
Do you think winning is the most important thing to him? Because you mentioned that last game he was awesome against the Lakers. He lit them up. There wasn't as much conversation about Dillon Brooks after the last game as there was after this game. This game, it's the antics. It's Dillon Brooks putting the spotlight on himself. What do you think he really wants? Would he prefer the spotlight or would he prefer to win if he can't have both?
I think LeBron. I think Dillon is a winner. I think Dillon leaving Memphis was really the beginning of the end there. I'm a huge believer in what Dillon brings to the table as a basketball player. It's just, this is a distraction. You know, it's a distraction for him, just like there are a lot of young players in the league that have distractions that prevent them from reaching their potential. I don't think it's like a referendum on Dillon as a competitor. I just think ultimately, like, Dillon growing up and becoming someone who sees the bigger picture a little bit more when it comes to his game, I think will benefit him. And honestly, it might just have to be LeBron retiring because for whatever reason, Dillon just can't stop doing this crap. But like it's like, did you see how many times in that game those two randomly like just butted shoulders like a couple of rams on the side of a mountain? Like in none of it is basketball, but it's like LeBron's got to hold his ground. He's not just going to stand there and let Dillon knock him over, but he like 20 times in that game it was like every time there was a transition from offense to defense, Dillon would run back and just ram either Luka or LeBron with his shoulder. And it's that extracurricular junk that just gets in the way of him reaching his potential.
Yeah, agreed. But we got this. I know this is off topic here, but Trevor, don't hear what I'm not saying, Lane. Jovan, two things can be true, Buha. Jason, literally. Did we find it?
Got me, Luis.
Did we find your catchphrase? Oh man. All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off. We had Jovan, you and I talked about it a little bit before we went on the show here. Luka didn't play well, but boy, the Sharks were out for Luka after last night's game. So Rip Van Winkle here with the super chat says, why was Luka bad? And thoughts on LeBron taking the technical free throw. I don't think LeBron should have been the one to take the technical free throw. The percentages will tell you that. He took it in that moment. Was anybody going to tell him no? Maybe not. Luka, though, I think is a more interesting question. He takes tough shots. He makes tough shots. Sometimes he doesn't. Last night, he couldn't hit anything. He was frustrated. I felt like there were moments defensively where the Lakers were flying around, where Luka it's like he was playing the same song as the rest of the team, but on a different beat. Like Luka wasn't quite in tune with everybody else. Jovan, what's going on with Luka? Are you concerned at all? And what's your response to all the criticism we've seen on social media?
It's been a little surprising to me. Like I know he has not played well these last 3 games. Looking at the number, I mean, it's funny because not playing well, 32, 8-8. But if you look at his shooting, obviously 37% overall, 23% on threes, and he's taking 10 threes per game over the past 3. So I think that I think there's been a little too much settling with Luka, and he was certainly a culprit and a big part of that run that the Lakers allowed in the fourth quarter in terms of the prevent offense and some of the shot selection down there. And again, if not for LeBron drawing the foul there, I think we would have looked at Luka's decision to almost attempt a contested step back, jumping up to take it, realizing it was a bad shot, then throwing a jump pass to LeBron that then it was almost a grenade to LeBron that LeBron I don't think he knew how much time was left on the shot clock, so he kind of went up with it immediately, or maybe he just wanted to give the Lakers a shot for an offensive rebound. But like that could have been a pretty bad sequence there to close out the game from Luka. But I mean, this is a small sample here in terms of I don't think he's looked to Jason's earlier point the same since returning from Slovenia. That's okay. It's only been a few games. I do like want to see a bit of a larger sample size before we start saying like Luka's not the same player he was a couple of weeks ago, or this is some concerning trend. But certainly, like there can be times where it's a balancing act with him in terms of the aggression that he has to then open up the other options within LA's offense, right? And he likes to start games hot. And he likes to attack, and then he gets the defense on their heels. They start to counter. They start to do things they don't want to do. They go to plan B, C, and D defensively, and then that's what unlocks the lobs, the kick out passes for threes, the weak side attacks, all those different wrinkles. So that's been a proven way for not only the Lakers offense, but even going back to Dallas. Like obviously Luka's been Western Conference Finals, top 5 offenses. Like that, there's a proof of concept there with that. At the same time, though, with the step back, especially, I think that's its own balancing act in terms of he uses that as a threat to then get downhill and create those lob opportunities and those kickouts. But when he's not making it, I think there needs to be a point where there's an acknowledgement of like, my shot's just not falling tonight. And that's tough for a player who is so skilled and who's so talented and who's so confident to kind of have that like judgment in the moment. But I think going 2 for 14, like I think if you're taking 14 threes in a game, especially many of them like contested step back threes, you got to be hitting 4 or 5. And it's a slight thing there, but like 2 for 14 is really different than 4 for 14 or 5 for 14. So I think that was a little bit too much tilted in the contested step back threes, and you know there were several clips that were going around on X of like, you know, just some of the decision making there was not the sharpest. But it's been 3 games. I know like at times this can be a little bit of an issue with Luka, but I don't overreact to that. Like I think he'll look at the film and hopefully, you know, learn from this. But it's just the shot's not been falling really. That's been it, right? Like when he got downhill, I mean the floaters, the post ups, drawing the fouls, like he was great getting downhill and attacking from that perspective. But when it was more so, I'm going to take contested jumper or, you know, contested threes, that was where I had more of an issue with it.
Luka in the month of December, 42% from the field, 26% from 3. The steals have also dried up. Just 3 steals in his last 6 games. He was averaging 2 steals a game for quite a while here. So, but again, we're talking about a small sample size here. It's a guy who is a great NBA player, one of the best players in the NBA, and it's a fine line between he's taking shots because Luka can make shots that would be a bad shot for somebody else, but if the shot's not falling, does he go away from that? And does he start to try to get other guys a bit more involved? I did think there were times where he forced some step backs. There was one in particular where Dylan Brooks did a really nice job reading it and contested, and it was a good contest, but there was 12 seconds left on the shot clock. There was time for Luka to say, okay, I don't have this right now. I don't have to drain this with the hand right in my face. I can move the ball and we can create a better look here. So some of the decision-making, certainly suspect, I think, over this recent stretch here, but it's Luka. So it's tough because, as Jovan noted, the aggression is part of what makes Luka, and the threat of shooting that shot is part of what makes Luka so difficult to defend. I don't know, Jason, where do you stand on Luka, the stretch he's in right now? Is there any concern? Where are you at with him?
He's kind of like trying to ram his head through a brick wall a little bit with the shot selection. Like he's trying to almost force his way into a 3-point rhythm. And I don't actually like the quality. Like to me, it's a big part of his result there is his quality. Like how much separation is he getting? And I think that counterbalance that Jovan's talking about with the threat of the drive is actually working against him now because he's not driving as much and he's settling more, and players are starting to actually kind of key in on that step back. And I thought the Suns got great contests on most of his step backs last night. It wasn't like he was getting really open looks that he was missing. As a matter of fact, the one that he made in the fourth quarter was one of the ones where he got good separation there on the left wing. The stats are kind of crazy too when you look at him compared to the other like high volume off the dribble 3-point shooters in the league. So there are, if you look at the top 5 guys in 3-point attempt volume off the dribble in the NBA. It's Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, and Luka Doncic. Okay. Luka is the only one of those guys who's taking over 8 a game. He's taking 8.2 off the dribble threes every single game. For some perspective, Anthony Edwards, who's kind of a chucker in his own way from the step back three, is only taking 6. So that goes to show you how much of a gap there is there between Luka and some of these other top guys at the towards the top of the league. Where it gets weird, though, is Luka's shooting 32% on him. So Luka's getting less than a point every time he goes to that step back three. James Harden, over 35%. Donovan Mitchell, 36%. Steph Curry, 43%. Anthony Edwards, 38%. Those guys are all at a level of efficiency where they're getting well over a point per shot when they go to that look. And so for me, I think one of the best ways for Luka to get himself into rhythm, because ideally what you're hoping for if you're a Lakers fan is 2024 Luka, right? That's the goal. You're looking for the Luka that took the Mavs to the finals. And if you look at that Luka, he was substantially more efficient from 2 and substantially more efficient from 3. And Luka got off to a really hot start this season in those categories, but he's basically been shooting pretty inefficiently for the better part of a month now. And one of the things that's going to be important for Luka to get back to that level, I think, is improving the shot quality, being a little more picky until he gets his confidence. Because this kind of thing can spiral. You start to miss a few, you start to not trust your shot as much. Now you're like really forcing the issue, but you're not in rhythm. He gets some really good looks. He might hit a few of them. That's when you start to go to some of the tougher ones, essentially tweaking his order of operations to be a little more picky about what step back threes he takes until he's in a groove. When Luka's in a groove and he's made 3 or so, that's when it's like, okay, now start getting in your bag a little bit, get to some of those tougher ones. But right now, to put it very simply, he's taking way too many. And among all of the high volume off the dribble 3-point shooters in the league, he's not even close in efficiency to the other guys that are taking that much. He's got to make some kind of adjustment.
So what do you do? Do you go to Luka and say, hey, let's take less shots? Because are you then taking away part of what makes Luka with that aggression? How do you handle that? Because Luka, you say this could improve his confidence. I don't look at Luka and think that he's not a confident player. In fact, I think maybe he's too confident in some of these shots because he feels like he can hit any of them. At the same time, though, there's almost, I hate making like a Kobe comparison, but there's kind of that kind of element of he gets like 1 or 2 to go and he may just go on a heater and then he's unstoppable. So how do you draw that fine line there with him?
I think it's easy. I think it's literally just like take away the 2 impossible ones you take in the game. Like just take those away. That'll go a long way. And frankly, like I know it's not going to be on the record, but I would be shocked if JJ hasn't said something to him in the last week or 2 about like, hey, dude, can we try to maybe tweak this a little bit? I wouldn't be surprised if he said something to him after the game last night. I think that especially now that they're heading into a stretch where they have like 1 game in the next 4 or 5 nights or whatever it is. So like, I think there's an opportunity to get into it with him now. And again, I'm with you. You're not telling him not to shoot. The dude's got guys, the dude has a 38% usage rate. It's 2% higher even than when he was in Dallas in 2024. Like this is like off the charts, straight up unusual high usage on a team that has 2 other elite shot creators and a bunch of other talent. No one's telling Luka to not be the superstar. No one's telling Luka to not take 20 shots. It's like just dial it back a tiny bit, and it'll actually be better for everybody. More opportunity for other players to get in a rhythm, and Luka's shot quality will improve, which will help him regain his confidence. Because, like, Jovan mentioned before we got started on the show today, Jovan was like, hey, like, we've had 6 straight games against teams that are 500 or better. Like, this is a tough stretch, and they went 3-3. And there's a lot of context you can get in there, guys in, guys out, weird lineups in certain games. But, part of the thing is like, what makes it a lot easier to beat San Antonio is if Luka's a superstar. Like if Luka's far and away the best player on the floor. You know what makes last night's game not even close and the Lakers win by 30 instead of taking a 20-point lead 8 minutes in the fourth quarter is if Luka plays like an MVP and not like what we've seen. Like the ultimate goal needs to be getting Luka back to that level because this team doesn't really have much of a chance to do anything unless Luka's at that level.
Very true. Very true. All right. We need to get to some of the fan questions and comments. We'll get there in just a moment. First, a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor, and that is SeatGeek. We definitely appreciate what SeatGeek has done for us. I think you guys should definitely check them out. Going to live sporting events is so much fun, and that's why I want to give today's sponsor, SeatGeek, a big shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including sporting events, concerts, festivals, and more. I love using SeatGeek. The app is so simple, so intuitive to use, and they've got your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, and red means bad. And SeatGeek does a great job separating them. Like, for example, I was looking for Lakers tickets. You can see all the green out there. That's how you know that you're getting a good deal. You can look through the map. You can scroll through all your different options and find the seats that you want. And every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. Plus, of course, I've got a code for you guys. You can use code LakersCollective10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code LakersCollective10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. SeatGeek, go check them out and use that code LakersCollective10. All right. And again, we appreciate it when you guys support the companies that help support us. So use that link in the description below and use that code LakersCollective10. All right. Let's get into some of our chat questions and comments here before we get out. Kevin said in 2024, the version of Luka that Jason just referenced, Luka got outplayed by SGA and Kyrie got locked up. Ultimately, Luka and Austin Reeves can lead a Laker team to build the 24 Mavs version. OKC will destroy them, and 24 Boston is also destroying them. So we've talked a lot over on my channel about what the Lakers, how they should conceptually look like, trying to build out this roster. But I've been cautioning people quite a bit because I get this comment all the time, and I'm seeing this on social media. I'm seeing this on YouTube, wherever. It's, well, the Lakers could do this, or Team X can do this, but it's not good enough to beat OKC. But OKC is still going to beat that team. 29 teams right now are looking at their situation saying, can we beat OKC right now in a series? That's going to be a very difficult challenge for anybody. And it doesn't mean you should just say, oh, well, that's it. Well, let's just wait. Let's just wait. We'll build our team 7 years from now. Let's just blow it up and we'll wait for OKC to run out the clock on whatever they've been doing so far. I just don't see that as realistic. And if you're going to build out a team around Luka and Austin, guys, I do think that 24 Mavs concept of defenders, athletes around your two guys is probably going to be the way to go.
Yeah. And I think not just the Lakers, but the top teams in the NBA should be going for it. I really respect going back now, 7 years, what the 2018 Rockets did in looking at the KD Steph Warriors and saying, hey, we're going to go for it. We're going to try. And if not for a Chris Paul hamstring injury, potentially win that series in 2018 and maybe win the title. So if you have a shot, I do believe that if you have even a little bit of a shot, you should at least be scouring the market during trade season, which is officially upon us. It started today, to try to upgrade the roster and go for it. Of course, you want to be smart with it, right? You want to be pragmatic. You want to look at your cap situation, and you don't want to just be taking unnecessary risk and trading for bad contracts just to potentially do like a win now short-term move. But you do want to see what's out there, do your due diligence, and just, kind of see if different ways to improve the roster. So I think LA should be going for it. I do think clearly, as we saw last night in some of the best stretches, and as we've seen from some of the best stretches from LA this season, like when they are defending at a certain level and they're getting a certain impact from their best defenders, you couple that with the offense from Luka and Austin and LeBron and the finishing from DA and Jackson and Rui, and that's just a really good team on both sides of the ball. The thing is, we want to see longer stretches of that, especially on the defensive side. So I think if they can find a way to add another 3-and-D player, as we've talked about a million times on here, like one or two of those guys could really pay dividends in terms of just balancing out this roster. And if you add that guy to the starting group and then maybe another guy to the bench, I think that's when the Lakers start getting into that. No one's going to be on paper as good as OKC. I don't see anyone necessarily going into a series being like a 50-50 situation, but can you get to 55-45 or something like that? Like potentially. And I think the only way you do that is if you're aggressive and actually go make a move.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a puncher's chance against OKC. You can't just throw your hands up and say, well, OKC is too good. We'll see you in 7 years or whatever. You got to go for it when you've got the opportunity. We'll go here. Braun scored a go-ahead 2-pointer, made the game-winning free throws, yet Trev and Jovan chose to focus on his missed free throws and 8 turnovers. What was Luka doing in the fourth? It's his team, right? Guys, this speaks to the whole, I really love pancakes. Why do you hate waffles of it all? You can't see. It's okay to say a player maybe shouldn't have been the one to shoot the free throw. It's okay to say, hey, LeBron maybe shouldn't have had 8 turnovers. He also had a really good game and made some big plays down the stretch. He was one of the guys when the team was overshooting on threes, finally drove to the basket and got a critical lay-in for the Lakers. But whataboutisms can drive me crazy sometimes when you're trying for just honest analysis of the game and aren't the type that typically gets devolves into player stand-up, where we have to protect and only say good things about certain players and only negative things about other. This kind of stuff drives me crazy.
I thought LeBron was pretty bad in the first quarter, just was like completely unprepared from the standpoint of ball security. But I thought he was really good after that. Honestly, my only real complaint is in that fourth quarter. I thought he had that same slot ISO that he did at the tail end of the game against Quentin Grimes in the Sixers game, and he forced that post entry to DeAndre Ayton that led to another turnover run out. But honestly, like other than that, I thought in the final 3 quarters he was awesome.
I also I saw when this came in the chat, and at the time I had not mentioned LeBron's 8 turnovers, and I only mentioned the missed free throws in the context of doing the play-by-play of like the final 20 seconds of the game. I did not call him out or critique him for missing the free throws. So I feel like some of this is also people hearing what they want to hear.
Very true. Very true. All right, here's an interesting one. Drop coverage kills Rui's effectiveness, forcing 2v2, no help off of shooters, and low activity defensively. Do you think his minutes should be cut when teams are running drop against the Lakers? Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that Rui is too talented compared to some of the other bench players to just bail on entirely. But I do think I don't hate the idea of maybe cutting his minutes down to like the high 20s, mid 20s, and giving a few more opportunities to Jake or to Vando in situations like that where the drop coverage is limiting the off-ball opportunities for your offensive players. I think the larger conversation is that I think we have a pretty substantial sample now dating all the way back to the Dorian Finney-Smith stuff last year at the tail end of the season to this season when LeBron came back, to where when Rui's got to play the 3, he's just not as good. When Rui's got to play the 3, it keeps him out of position. And yeah, it was definitely better than the Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish options that you had back in 2023, 2024. No one's arguing with that kind of stuff, but I think it's pretty clear now that the Lakers just really need someone that naturally slots into that position. And I think that there's a very straightforward assignment for Rob coming into this deadline, which is try to find a way to turn Rui. Obviously you don't trade Rui just for the sake of trading Rui, but I try to find a way to balance this roster in a way so that you don't have such a significant salary slot going to a guy who's playing out of position, and that's limiting his effectiveness. Yeah. It's coming down to the fact now where he's going to get these handful of corner threes every game, and every time he misses them, you're that's why you're out there. You know what I mean? And it can get a little tricky. And I don't envy the position he's in. He's being asked to do a lot of stuff that nobody else in his position group gets asked to do around the league.
And we've got till February 5th is the trade deadline. Rui has been one of the elite shooters off ball in the NBA. Look at his percentages, been great now 3 seasons straight. The question is, can he be the piece that ultimately fits for the team? And can he, I still think, and Jovan, you can speak to this, but I think there is a world where you add the piece the Lakers need, the proverbial 5th starter that we've been talking about, without losing Rui Hachimura. And then you've got his talent at least coming in off the bench. Now we can talk about whether or not Rui's a good bench player, but I'm not all out on Rui as a player for this Lakers team. As Jason's saying, it could be more of a role thing, but Rui's a good player that you can't just lose for nothing either.
100%. And I agree that the Lakers should not just trade Rui just to trade him. I think this continues to come back to fit. And we've talked about it. I've made the point that I look at, for example, OKC and Minnesota as 2 teams that Rui would fit great in. If you took out Julius Randle or you took out obviously there'd be a downgrade, to be clear. I'm just saying, like, I think the ideal build for a Rui starting lineup is an elite rim protector and an elite defensive wing where Rui is the worst front court defender. The issue for the Lakers is they are deploying him as the best front court defender, and that is just not the best deployment of Rui's skill set. Rui is a 4, and to Jason's point, when they play him at the 3, he tries. Like, he tries his hardest. There just is a limitation there with the lateral quickness, with the processing, with the screen navigation, with the off-ball defense. Like, there's just a limitation there. And this is not a shot at Rui or this is not a criticism of him. It's just like, play any player out of position and there's going to be diminishing returns at some point. So I think with Rui, he needs to play the 4 more. And the way to do that is to do that on the bench. And I think you probably need to stagger. Like the combination of LeBron, Rui, and Luka needs to be staggered where it's only 2 of those 3 on the floor, because I think all 3 of those guys are basically 4s defensively and want to be off ball as helpers and the low man, or that's probably like the best way to both hide them and also play to their strengths. But you can't do that when you're playing all 3 of those guys together. So I think it needs to be Rui off the bench, ideally staggering him and LeBron more. And then, but still finding 24 to 26 minutes a night for him. And I do think in some of these bench lineups, especially when he's like, it's one thing to compete with Luka, Austin, LeBron, and DeAndre for shots. He's clearly the 5th option when he's out there as a starter. But when you're competing with Gabe and Marcus and Jake and Vando and Jackson, that's where he ascends in the pecking order. And there could be some bench lineups where he's like the number 2 option or at least like number 3 and featured more. So I think you improve the defense by moving him to the bench. You improve the overall fit. And you also, I think, put him in a better position, especially next to like Luka and Austin led bench lineups, to be a more featured piece of the offense. So I think it makes sense all around. Now, the challenge is the Lakers got to get that player, right? I think if they stay with the status quo, Rui's going to continue to start. JJ clearly has telegraphed, like, I don't think he's going to change the starting group anytime soon. So they're going to continue to have this issue. But I think longer term, it's about the right fit for him, which I think on this team is off the bench. On some teams, if you have the right defensive personnel, can be as a starter.
Yep. That was a great way to break it down. I love it. They should lean into DeAndre Ayton more. He's automatic. He was great last night's game. 20 points. What was he? 10 of 11 shooting, something like that. He's been absolutely fantastic, though. I would counter, the part of the reason why he's so automatic is when he's getting these looks, and he does a phenomenal job knocking them down. Take nothing away from DA, but he's getting these looks that are being created by others, and he is focusing on these high percentage looks, these opportunities when he is really open. If you start forcing the ball to DA and saying we have to get him more attempts, those percentages will start going down as he's starting to take more difficult shots. But he has been fantastic as a play finisher. He's fit in very well as a screener. I like especially the re-screen chemistry that we're seeing between DA and Austin, as well as DA and Luka. I think we were still working a little bit on the DeAndre Ayton and LeBron chemistry there, but in general, DeAndre Ayton, I think, has done a fantastic job, and he is really taking advantage of his opportunities. I think the Lakers guys we'll see how the season goes, but they may have their long-term answer here at the center position.
I think the Lakers center rotation this season has been a bright spot between him and Jackson. Jackson's been legitimately better than he has at any point in a Laker jersey. I think that in general, looking forward, the weakness has been that perimeter speed and athleticism at the 2, 3, 4 spot. But I think given the type of salary resources the Lakers have tied up at the center position, it's like A+++ in terms of how they performed relative to their salaries.
All right, let's go here. Marcus Smart ruined my bet with the wide open layup turnover. What was that? Defense was solid tonight. Gabe needs to go. Not enough on defense, and he's way too streaky shooting wise. I'd rather play Nick Smith Jr. All right. He was trying to share the ball. He didn't realize, I think it was Grayson Allen was right behind him. You could see it coming. It was almost like that play was happening in slow motion because you knew what he was going to do, and there was no way to stop it. You knew it was going to happen. And it wound up being a really critical turnover because I think the Suns came back and hit a 3 off of it. So it was a 5-point swing, but it was a horrible play. Had he known Grayson Allen was there, he would not have thrown that pass. But yes, he should have just taken the layup. That said, I've seen more of this conversation and been having more of this conversation. Gabe more missed than hit, had some good moments in last night, forced a couple of turnovers, hit a big three. Should Nick Smith be getting an opportunity, or are you guys good with just sticking with Gabe?
Well, okay.
I know that's a lot.
The thing I'm going to say here is like we can have this theoretical discussion. Gabe is going to continue to be in the rotation. Like, so, sure. I mean, remember, this is the guy who, when we were having the Rui Marcus starting conversation, and JJ was over here having the Gabe Vincent's going to start conversation. So we did not even consider Gabe Vincent as a serious threat. And obviously, with LeBron out, it was Rui and Gabe to start the season. But I don't see a world in which Gabe is phased out. I think JJ has been reducing his minutes a little bit. Like against the Spurs, he only played 14 minutes. And I thought that was an encouraging sign in terms of JJ at least acknowledging like there are some matchups where Gabe can have a tough time, especially against these bigger, more physical teams or more athletic teams. But I don't mind him in like some of the quicker matchups against like Phoenix and Golden State, where it's kind of about speed and chasing guys off ball and stuff like that. That's okay. But against the OKCs and San Antonios and Houstons, that's where I have a little bit more of an issue, because I think he's going to get exploited with his just size limitations. Like that's what it is. Teams can go at him, mismatch hunt against him, get offensive rebounds against him. And then offensively, he's just not a reliable contributor right now. And I think his shot selection can obviously fluctuate in terms of either similar to Jake, although he's definitely more aggressive than Jake, but like not being aggressive enough. And then sometimes taking these questionable shots where it's 19 left on the shot clock. He flies around a screen and just predetermines I'm going to shoot this, when it's like, dude, that's not the right shot right now. And you're not in a rhythm. So I do think Nick Smith showed something defensively his last couple games before he was taken out of the rotation, where I think that had been the clear criticism or limitation with him earlier in the season, where Nick was getting lit up defensively. And like in the preseason, it was bad. It did get a little bit better, but it was not good to start the season. And even in like the Portland game, right? Like he came in, made a huge impact, but defensively he was a liability. I do think we've seen a little bit of a turn from him recently in his last couple of shifts, where he's looked much better defensively and actually been making plays. If he can sustain that, which we will only know if he gets an opportunity, then I think that's more of a conversation. But again, we can have like the conversation about what we think is going to happen, and then there's the conversation of what's actually going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't see Gabe falling out of the rotation.
We survived our first Marcus Smart real stinker there. Any Celtics fan will tell you that's been part of the deal.
Well, the San Antonio, remember the inbounds pass against San Antonio.
Oh yeah,
and the foul.
That's right. Well,
I forgot if he got the foul or not, but the inbounds pass,
where he stepped over the line. Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yep. All right, last one. I have saved a bunch of these super chats, but we have to run in just a moment. Charlie said, "Is it possible for us to trade for both Trey Murphy and Herb Jones?" I mean,
not really.
Not yet. Not logistically.
Unless you're trading Austin. That's the one way. But I mean, there's now been multiple reports over the past week that the Pelicans don't think the Lakers have enough. Now, I think that's partly posturing for the Herb Jones specific conversation, but Trey Murphy, they want even more than Herb Jones. So if the Lakers don't have enough, or if that's like a haggle for Herb, I don't think they have enough for Trey unless they're putting Austin on the table, which I don't see happening.
What about Paulo Banchero? Can we tap into it next year? If it includes Austin Reeves, would you do a trade? Would you trade Austin Reeves in a deal to land Trey Murphy? Well, let's start there.
I don't think so. I don't think I would trade Austin unless it was for a top tier superstar.
Would you trade him for Paolo?
I wouldn't trade him for Paolo. First of all, Austin's been a better basketball player than Paolo this year by a pretty wide margin. And two, I think Paolo is a terrible long-term fit with Luka.
Yeah, I think that's about where I'm at as well. I think that it makes total sense for the Pels the Pels can't even by rule trade Herb Jones until January 14th. That's when he becomes trade eligible. So it makes total sense for them to right now say, oh, no, we need way more than what any team has to offer for Herb Jones, for Trey Murphy, for all that stuff. Those guys are good players, good contracts. If you're telling me you could somehow turn Austin straight up into Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, maybe that's a different conversation. Do you think Trey Murphy can be the number 2 guy next to Luka? Does he need to be if he's only making $25 million? It's a much bigger conversation. If it's Austin for Trey Murphy, I don't think the Lakers are doing that. And then as far as Paolo, I agree with Jason. I don't think that's actually something that that the Lakers would do.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me with Paolo is he's a below average 3-point shooter who needs the ball in his hands. And we've seen the Lakers, I mean, I'm going to be careful here, but we've seen the Lakers try to fit in a star player who needs the ball in his hands and is a below average 3-point shooter before. Did not go well. Obviously, I think Paolo's in a different phase of his career than Russ was at that time. But in terms of fit, like this is a guy who is a high usage player who is his best 3-point shooting season. It was 34% a couple years ago. Since then, 32% on 6 attempts, 27% this season on 4 attempts. Like that'll regress, but he is a below average 3-point shooter. And I think you want positive shooting around Luka. And if it's Murphy and Herb, that's, I think, a conversation. But then the other part of this is like you do, I think, need some really high level playmaking from either your 4 or your 5. If you're going Luka, Herb, Trey, I don't think that's enough secondary ball handling and playmaking from those two. So then, like, of course you have LeBron now, but like longer term, once LeBron retires, you need a playmaking big, which is easier said than done. I think there's obviously like a bunch in the NBA now, but to actually get that guy and fit that guy next to Luka is its own conversation. So I would entertain Trey and Herb for Austin, obviously, but then there's like a whole secondary conversation of like, how do you find enough playmaking? And Luka does like having that Jalen Brunson, Kyrie Irving, Austin type. You don't necessarily have that player anymore. So I think that would be a void they'd have to fill.
That part that Jovan's getting there, that to me is the crux of the matter. Like Austin has proven himself this year as a pretty clean fit as the classic number 2 off of Luka, just like Brunson and Kyrie were. So if you're going to move him, I think you got to have a plan for that position, either by getting him back, or you better have a guy in house where you're like, this dude's going to pop in the next 2 years and be an all-star. So like at that point, it complicates. That's what I mean when I say like it's got to be for a top tier star. Top tier is probably a little too small of a window there. There's probably like maybe, a dozen players that you'd consider making that move for, but it's got to be someone that fits long-term as Luka's number 2. Because how often, you know how hard it is when you're rebuilding a team to have a clear number 1 and a clear number 2, and the Lakers have that. Like you don't botch that unless you know what your next step is.
In other words, don't expect an Austin Reeves trade this season from the Lakers. But we got to run. I did save the super chats we didn't get to, so I will make sure we get to those. Our next show is coming up on Thursday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Guys, as always, one of the highlights of my week. Always enjoy this show, and it was great talking Lakers basketball with you.
It was good to see you guys. Looking forward to Thursday.
Great to see you guys. Appreciate the chat. Shout out, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. See ya, and stay safe.